Welcome to the Saturday in Athens podcast. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, joined as always by my co-host, James Kim. Well, homie, just like that, it's stinking week 11. I can't hardly believe it. I'm a little sad about it. It feels like the season, I know it always goes by quick, but it feels like this year it has gone especially quick. And before we start, I do want to draw attention, if you're looking on video, at this electric Army jersey that your boy has procured and will actively wear a hole in forever and ever, amen. As we have talked about, this is our adopted team this year, is the Army Black Knights. Yeah. So go Black Knights.
It is absolutely beautiful and stunning. I'm very proud of you for purchasing that. You're not one to usually purchase other teams' attire, so go Black Knights.
Had to have it, man. God, I had to have it. I love watching them. They're just probably my favorite story. I don't know. If I'm being honest, it's probably them 1A and then 1B is Indiana. I am so fascinated with Indiana. Like I've been watching their games as if they are my team. Like I find it on the guide. And I'm gonna watch Indiana on Saturday. Yeah. Which, dude, they have a spicy little matchup, I think. I mean, dude, Michigan stinks, right? But I think it's another opportunity for them to blow the doors off a name brand. Like, okay, let's talk about this because I'm interested to get your opinion. CFP rankings obviously came out Tuesday night. And let's just start here. What'd you think of the initial numbers? Not that it really matters because I think you and I both are, look, man, just play. And we'll talk about this when it actually matters come Selection Sunday. But just given the initial numbers and kind of what that indicates about where the committee is leaning as we stand now, what were your, I guess, bullet point takeaways from that?
I think it's more important where the lower teams are because they're showing that they want to give some of the higher teams some ranked wins than it is where the higher ranked teams are, because the higher ranked teams just have to win. It's just what it is. That if they win, they're in.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I've seen this talked about a bunch, but why is Mizzou ranked?
Yeah.
I know they only have 2 losses, but they just it's like they keep saying, we're using the eye test, and the eye test for this team looks really good, but the eye test for Mizzou does not look good. The record looks good, but the eye test does not look good. And there's eye tests for other teams with same record that looks much better.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand the Mizzou ranking, and I feel like that they're there just to kind of prop up Alabama a little bit. So that I didn't really understand. I mean, I'm fine with the rankings. That the Mizzou one was the only one that stood out to me. I think Army should be ranked a little higher, personally. Indiana, I thought Indiana could have been up 1 or 2 spots more because they're just blowing the doors off people. They've been dominant. I understand they haven't played anybody. I get that. I get their strength of schedule has been bad, but they've been dominant. And if they were another team with a different logo on the side of their helmet, they would be in the top 4 right now.
100%.
So that's another argument. Like, I hate that it's like they always say it's not where you start. Well, it still is where you start. And it's, this is supposed to be a brand new ranking. I also found it very interesting that Miami was 4. I was like, so you're basically basing that solely on their offense because their defense is trash.
And Miami's one of those teams where I'm not really convinced they're going to finish the year undefeated. Like, I think that's going to take care of itself. I don't see that with them for the reasons you just brought up. Their defense is horrible. I mean, they cannot stop a nosebleed. And in all honesty, could have lost at Louisville, could have lost at Virginia Tech. I mean, look, they finished it out, and that's all that matters. But they have some holes, and I think somebody said on the show that essentially Miami's argument is we have Cam Ward and you don't, and that's true, right? Like, he is electric and singular, and so he gives them a shot in every game they're in because he is who he is. But they got holes, man, and I think if they play somebody that can get a stop on defense, they're in trouble because they can't. So that's going to cause a problem. I'm with you. I think the big standouts for me was the Indiana thing, and I knew it was going to happen. You've kind of seen it in the AP rankings and the coaches polls. Everybody just sees it. Look, it's a basketball school, and there's just no respect. And I'm right on board with you, man. I've said this to multiple people. If they had any other name across the front of their jersey, they'd be in the top 5, and it's not even questionable. And that's strength of schedule independent. If you have watched them play, dude, they're a very good football team. They're excellent on defense. They know who they are on offense, and they do it very, very well. And man, you do not want to see them in December. I'm just going to tell you that. That is not a team that I would want to play. And they obviously believe in Coach Cignetti and what his mission is and kind of what their ethos is. And so, homie, Indiana is real. And yeah, I would not want to mess with them. The other one, I'm with you on Army. And I know it's the same argument with Army. They haven't played anybody. It's an academy. I feel like the whole year, Navy has been the academy everybody talked about. And then Navy goes to the Meadowlands and has, 6 turnovers when they play Notre Dame. So, dude, the thing with Army is they have not trailed 1 second all season. Not 1 second have they trailed. And dude, they have a very good defense. You know, I'm a huge proponent. Max Olson puts out stop rate each week. I love that metric. Army's got the number 2 stop rate in all of America behind Tennessee. So, they're doing something right. And, you can only play who's in front of you. Now, they have, I think, a testy little game this weekend. They got to go to Denton and play on the road against North Texas. So, I think that's a game that they can kind of show out and show who they are. And then, obviously, the monster matchup next week against Notre Dame, which is obviously going to be their prove-it game. I think what was telling for me was, and I'm interested to get your opinion on this, the way they ranked Boise and the way they ranked Army told me that even if Army wins out and wins the American, if Boise wins out, Boise's in, Army's out, right? I mean, that's what the rankings told me. Army, the only way Army is getting in is if Boise loses. That's it. That's our only path. So they could control everything they can control, be undefeated, and they will still not get in.
I'm not sure they get in if Boise goes undefeated, wins the rest of their regular season games and loses a close game in the Mountain West Championship.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that happens. This could be like the TCU scenario all over again, where they have the close loss to Oregon, and then let's say they play UNLV again in the Mountain West, and they they lose a last second or overtime game to them. I could see them still slotting in the 12 slot.
Dude, think about this with Army. Think about this with Army, and I know one of these metrics won't get counted in the selection deal, but in theory, they could go 14-0 and miss the playoffs because they go 12-0 regular season, win the American title game, and then also beat Navy the following week in essentially a game that's not getting counted for the playoff selection committee. But they could be 14-0 and outside of the playoffs. Mm. And everybody said there'd be no drama with a 12-team playoff. I think that would be a huge story, especially given that it's one of the academies. I just think that would be a crazy thing. And obviously so much has to happen. But you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Army's rub is their only opportunity for kind of a statement or stake in the ground win is Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is a weird case because they lost to Northern Illinois, who has done Notre Dame zero favors with the way Northern Illinois' season has played out. Been a little confounded about the AP and coaches poll rankings and now the CFP rankings with how much favor Notre Dame has gotten. And maybe I shouldn't be surprised by that, given the brand and given what Notre Dame is. But, I think you could have the same conversation about them as, what win with them are you I guess Texas A&M is what they're staking everything with Notre Dame's resume. Is they beat Texas A&M. But then Texas A&M just goes to Columbia and gets the doors blown off by South Carolina. So then it's is that a great – you know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. Notre Dame's a weird case for me. That was another one I thought was funky. The other one, and I know Greg McElroy talked about it on that show, but BYU. What else does BYU have to do to get any love? I mean, I don't really understand it. They go on the road and beat SMU, and they're undefeated, and they've looked great. And so, what did they sit at? They were 9.
8. No, 9. They're behind Indiana.
Tough, man. I mean, if you're BYU, I don't know what else you have to do. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. All right, well, we'll talk about all that stuff. I want to talk to you about, obviously, a huge one for the Dawgs this weekend. They got to go to the Grove, another really, really tough road matchup. Third one of the season. They've already been to Tuscaloosa, already been to Austin, now going to Oxford to play Ole Miss, who's coming off of an absolute throttling of Sam Pittman in Arkansas. Where do you sit on this? How are you feeling, given how the Dawgs have looked, and we'll get into this, but how Carson has looked over the last month plus, I guess.
I'm confident in the defense because it's Kirby versus Lane. And I will always favor Kirby in that matchup. And because the pressure at this point, in my opinion, I mean, is all on Lane, because they have to win out to get in, and they still may not get in.
Yeah.
There's all the pressures on them. We have a mulligan in our back pocket. We can lose one and most likely still get in. We can't get blown out and get in, but we can lose one and still probably get in. So I think that this next 2-game stretch is obviously going to be extremely tough, and more than likely, I think the Dawgs should win the next 2 games. I think the Dawgs can win the next 2 games if they play like they can. But they have a mulligan with these next 2. Lane doesn't. They have to play their A game every week, and when the pressure's on Lane, he wilts.
Yeah. Well, I think too. Don't you think he's gonna do something irrational? That's what he does.
Yes. 4th and 2 from his 29. You know, something stupid like that.
In the first quarter.
In the first quarter, yeah.
Yeah, like I just think they got to let Lane be Lane, and they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. Like I don't think there's any question about that. I am more interested in what Georgia controls, and at the top of that list for me is Carson. And my thing with Carson is it's not about talent, it's not about what throws he can make, it's not about productivity. It's about, can he protect the football, man? Like, the thing for me is I would have a lot more grace, I think, with the turnovers if it was, hey, look, we're giving our guy a shot. That was a 50-50 ball. Defender made a great play. Or it was 3rd down and we're taking a shot or stuff like that. But it's been plays where it's like, do we even know what the down and distance is right now? Like, how many of these picks have been on 1st and 2nd down? It's been a bunch. And it's also been in areas where it can't happen. 2 of the 3 on Saturday, the cocktail party, were on the Florida side of the 50. Like, that can't happen. I mean, one of them absolutely took points away, and the other one, you could argue, if they got 10 more yards, there's points on the board there too. So, like, that's been my issue with it, is that they've not just been turnovers, but they've been reckless turnovers. And they've been turnovers that really weren't forced outside of him getting sped up. I mean, that's the long and short of it. I want to talk to you about this. I've tried to find the clip, and I'm still working to find the clip. But it stuck out to me, and it was kind of like an earbug. Like, wait a minute, that troubles me a little bit. When game day was in Tuscaloosa for the Dawgs-Bama game, they ran a film clip of Carson. And they had Coach Saban on the mic essentially breaking it down and talking about it. And I remember he said something like 10 different times, very obviously repetitively. And he kept going, if Carson Beck has time, if Carson Beck has time, if Carson Beck has time, like to the point where he was harping on it on purpose, right? And I kept going, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And then, dude, that's exactly what played out in the Bama game. Was they got pressure and he didn't look good. And that has been a theme all season. And so what that told me is that when Coach Saban and Alabama's coaching staff going into the SEC title game last year did film study, they went, we have to get pressure. If we get pressure, he's going to self-implode. He can't throw without a clean pocket. That's essentially what he was saying. If he has a clean pocket. And so Dude, that has just stuck with me all season. And as usual with Coach Saban, it's been correct, right? Like, you look at the game film, I would argue that if he experiences any type of pressure, he has problems. Like, I bet his completion percentage sucks. I bet his interception rate is way up. I don't have the metrics on that. I'm just telling you based off what I've seen. He has pressure. He's got problems. And so, dude, that's problematic. Like, we got to figure something out with that. And it doesn't even have to be he's making a play when there's pressure. Just don't make a negative play when there's pressure. Like, just throw it away.
Exactly. It's not even just throw it away. I mean, he needs to understand that it's okay to take a sack. Like, that is, that's a negative play, but sometimes that's better than a turnover.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are plenty of times, and the second interception, the one that he threw where it was basically triple coverage, the one that you're talking about took points off the board.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can't remember who he was trying. I think he was trying to throw it to Arian. And there were like two linebackers crisscrossing in front of him.
Yeah.
And there was a guy coming behind him. So on that play, like, the pressure wasn't really much. It was a little bit of pressure. It's like as soon as he feels any pressure, all of his mechanics go to absolute crap this year. Like, there's no calmness. There's no, like, you remember that South Carolina game last year, like at halftime, like how calm he was and how there was confidence. Like, he has no confidence this year at all. And it's gone. And I don't know where, like, I don't know what happened. And everybody says it's because Ladd and Brock are gone. And I think that might be part of it because he doesn't have his security blanket. But I mean, I texted you about this, or I sent you my list of my texts because you didn't watch the game live. It's clear he doesn't trust his receivers, and nothing was more evident than on that third down play. I think it was the third quarter when he did the check to Dom, and Dom acknowledged the check and still ran the wrong route.
Yeah,
and Carson about lost his mind. So. Like, that's little things. Like, that's, Dom's a senior. They're both seniors. They've been playing together for 2 years. That's something that should be known.
Can we talk about that?
Like, I don't.
How are we 10 plus weeks into the season and that's still happening? I don't understand that. Like, maybe we need to figure out a different way to communicate this, because obviously something has been lost in translation. It's happening at least once a game, at least. And so, like, let's do something different, man. Like, I don't know. That's been a problem. I'm with you on the confidence thing. He just doesn't. He just looks tepid. Like, and he's looked tepid for a long time. I mean, I thought he looked tepid against Kentucky. He's not confident in where he's going or kind of what the plan is supposed to be. And I think what's maddening about it is he'll also make 5 or 6 throws a game where you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's why he was on top of a bunch of draft boards. Like, it's in there. It's just finding it. And I also want to be very clear, because I think you're in the same boat on this. Us, like, dissecting this and talking about it and being quasi-critical of what the play has been, in no way, shape, or form is me saying they need to make a change, because I don't think they do at all. Like, I think if they are going to be in the conversation and win a SEC championship and go on and compete and hopefully win a national title, he is the only quarterback they have on the roster that they can accomplish that with. Hard stop. It's not even a debate for me. So all these people talking about, oh, they need to bench Carson's like, no, dude, they don't. Carson just needs to get right. That's it. That's the actual conversation. But if you're sitting out there talking about, oh, they need to switch to Gunnar Stockton or they need to give Jaden Rashad a chance, no, hard pass. Like, there's one NFL talent level quarterback on that roster currently. I'm not saying Ryan Puglisi maybe couldn't become that, or maybe even Jaden Rashad couldn't become that. But right now it's Carson Beck. And so he's the one they got to dance with. And so the conversation is about getting Carson right, not about moving on to somebody else. And I think that's what people need to figure out and get past. Like, dude, it just, in so many ways, it reminds me of all the noise around Stetson in 2021. It's like, no, dude, like, he's the guy. Either he gets right and we go win a national title, or he doesn't get right and we don't. That's the only conversation we're having. There is no let's go to somebody else.
I wouldn't say that. I will say this. This is not a benching conversation whatsoever. But it is very clear that one of the things that has affected our running game in the last 2 years is there is no threat of the quarterback keeper. It's just not.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it would be beneficial to have some packages for Gunner because he does have wheels, like Penn State does with their backup quarterback. I don't know the kid's name. But when like last week, did you watch the Ohio State game at all? Oh, no, you didn't. You didn't get a chance to watch it. But
I watched a little bit on the video later.
They would bring him in for like 3 plays, and then they'd switch him out. And it was like, specific situations, and like he'd still throw the ball. Like, it wasn't like he come in and just run, but it was the threat on the RPOs that made him so dangerous because he has the wheels. And we just don't have that. And it's not like Stet ran a lot, but he was always a threat. Carson is not. And when Carson does, it's usually because he's running for his life.
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. It definitely subtracts a dimension from the offense. But the flip side of that argument for me is figure it out. Like, figure out a different way, like, scheme a different way to help the running game be successful. And I will say, I don't think the running game, when Trevor Etienne is healthy, has been that big of an issue. They essentially ran at will against Texas. They've made a choice not to. I mean, if you look at the attempts per game and all those type things, they've decided we are going to make this offense revolve around the pass. And we believe in Carson, and we believe our explosiveness is based around the pass. And okay, well, then go out and do it. I mean, I do think, absent Trevor, the running game is different. Like, it's just different. I mean, it is. I know Nate Frazier has explosiveness and all those things, but they very clearly don't fully trust him yet. And he certainly didn't do himself many favors with the Gator Chomp celebration, as much as I loved it. Although I don't think they would have flagged him just for the Gator Chomp. I think it was the Gator Chomp and the neck cut afterwards.
Yes, it was definitely the neck cut.
Yeah, the neck cut is what got him. But yeah, he still looks great, though. I think Nate Frazier is going to be electric in the next couple of years, and still shows glimpses of that. But yeah, man, the long and short of it is, Carson has got to get right. And I don't even know that he has to get right from the perspective of throwing 4 and 5 touchdowns a game. He just has to get right where he's not turning the ball over. Like, dude, Kirby said it. Carson said it in postgame on Saturday. Florida never stopped them outside of Carson throwing an interception. I mean, they did essentially whatever they wanted offensively. And, like, just don't turn it over, man. Like, dude, there's only 2 quarterbacks in America that have more interceptions than him. And that's Kyle McCord at Syracuse, who has 12, and the cat at New Mexico. Was it Devin Dampler at New Mexico? That's the only 2. They both have 12. And then Carson at 11. Like, it just can't happen, man. It just cannot happen. And they're going back-to-back weeks here. Ole Miss is 10th in stop rate, and then you got Tennessee next week between the hedges, who's first in America in stop rate. Like, you got to figure it out, man. Like, have to figure it out and have to figure it out quickly. And so I just feel like, too, that he is one where you can see it early, too. Like, I thought Alabama's first drive, it was like, oh, yeah, something's off here. He don't look right. And so I don't know, man. I don't know if they can work in some play action shots where he's going to have clean pocket and like a one-on-one look where he doesn't have to make a decision. Something to get him in rhythm and get him some confidence. But yeah, he's the one on Saturday. Let's flip. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Okay. How confident are you in Georgia's defense, specifically Georgia's secondary, facing Jackson Dart in this Ole Miss offense?
I honestly am more concerned about Jackson Dart's legs than Jackson Dart throwing the ball. So
Yeah.
I think that the secondary will be fine. I know they had the one bust in the
Florida game.
Lagway touchdown in
Yeah.
the Florida game, but for the most part, I mean, it's not like Texas didn't have receivers open, but as far as getting pressure, if the front seven gets pressure, which I think they will, then I think the secondary will be fine because it's all, it goes together. And what worries me is Dart and his ability to squirt out and get the extra yardage. That's what worries me. So we're gonna have to probably spy him. Probably CJ will spy him, and we're gonna have to get pressure on him. But I'm not really worried about his them getting huge chunk. Like I'm not worried about I don't think that, like, I think Maria Taylor said it on the Monday Night Football broadcast. Like, he's not going to throw for 515 yards. I don't think he's going to throw for 515 yards.
No,
I don't see this as a shootout. I think this is going to be more of a grinded out type game. I really do. I really think this is, I really think we are going to have this game reminds me a lot of the Missouri game last year. This is the feel I'm getting from this game.
I think that's a good comp. Don't you too? I know it's all separate, right? And Georgia's defense is obviously very, very different, especially in the secondary. You got 3 guys that are playing on Sunday now that were in that secondary last year, but it is hard to not think about last year's game in Athens where this Ole Miss team wasn't terribly different offensively. I mean, really, you could say in some ways they had a more dynamic player in Quinshon Judkins on the roster at that point. And so Georgia hangs a 50 burger on them, and it really wasn't close after the first quarter. And so I think that goes back to your point earlier, though, that if we're going to set stakes on somebody, I'm going to set stakes on Kirby Smart before I am on Lane Kiffin. And that's kind of where I'm going to hang my hat, is that this just feels like a game where Kirby and Glenn are going to scheme it well, and it's going to be fine. Like, I do think you bring up a very valid point about Jackson Dart. I think they have historically struggled with guys who can do both. And that was not present in the Texas game, which you and I had talked about that week, was, hey, look, this is great. Quinn Ewers going to stay in the pocket. They don't have to worry about that. So that is something I think to watch. And I think, too, man, they're going to have to weather the storm a little bit, because I think that atmosphere will be electric on Saturday. I did think it was a nice win that's going to kick off at 3:30 instead of at night. So that's good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, this has been an interesting year as a follower of the Georgia Bulldogs, because you just don't know who they are week to week, right? Like, it's bizarre. Like, you just go, well, let's see who they are this week. Like, I don't know, man. Every week I feel like
in a lot of ways
they look different.
In a lot of ways it feels kind of like 2014, but in 2014 you were like, wonder who's going to suit up this week. But in this season it's kind of like you wonder who's going to show up, like which team's going to show up. But it feels kind of, the feeling's kind of the same. Not 2014, 2013. Sorry, 2013. Everybody was hurt in 2013.
I do think defensively have gotten healthier, and I think because of that, they're starting to figure themselves out a little bit. I do think the Florida game was a little bit of an outlier because there was no Dan Jackson, no Jonel Guerrero in the first half. And so you got guys getting reps that probably wouldn't have gotten as many reps otherwise. And so, I think KJ Bolden gets better every single week, and I think that's going to continue to happen. The more live reps he gets, just the better he's going to get. And so it is concerning to me that there's these busts where Malachi keeps getting sucked up and gets beat deep. Like, I just feel like that shouldn't be happening. But that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. But I do think Mikel being healthy, they're just I think the defense is figuring it out, and I'm starting to feel better and better about the defense each week. Like, dude, you start, at least for me now, I'm going, they need a 3-and-out. I feel like they maybe could get a 3-and-out. Whereas I feel like the first month of the season, you went, oh, God, they need a 3-and-out. They're not going to get a 3-and-out.
Here's a 6-play drive.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do feel better about that. And I think offensively, too, they're starting to – people are finding their slots, meaning guys are figuring out what their roles are. Like, dude, another monster third down catch and throw when they need it between Carson and Arian, right? Like, another one where it's a spot in the game where you have to sustain a drive, 3rd and long, and that's where they go. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't it look a lot to you like the same route as they hit in the Texas game? Like,
it looked very similar.
Very similar, man. Like, which in all honesty, I think when they run that route and it's man coverage, I don't know if there's anybody in America that can cover Arian on that, because
you got to respect him deep.
You do. You have to respect him deep. And so if he sticks a foot in the ground and comes back, it's going to be naked every time. Like, I love that route concept. I love that. That's something that they have in their pocket to go to when they need it. So yeah, that's been good. So let me throw something at you. You know, your boys here have been diving into underdog fantasy this year, having a little something extra on the games, wanting something to look at, having some kind of fantasy action going on. And unfortunately, one of the props that I looked at this week, one of the higher lowers I looked at was Carson Beck interceptions.
Oh, God.
And the higher lower figure on Carson Beck interceptions was half. So if Carson throws one interception and you go higher than that, you got yourself a shot. And so, I don't know, man. That seems...
I think you have to.
I think you maybe have to look at the higher on the Carson Beck interception this week. So that may be something that we look at, and we're not the only ones looking at it. Over 1 million fans across 33 states are getting in the game this year by making picks on Underdog. You can make picks easy on Underdog. It's straightforward. Signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com, and you can sign up with the promo code SAP, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code SAP to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, and 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona. And you must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783. Or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW-YORK or text HOPE New York at 467-369. All right, we're going to transition from the Dawgs game and talk a little bit about something that we're fired up about, brother, and something that we kind of got some final details on yesterday. Your favorite co-hosts are taking a little college football road trip, and y'all know how much we love our rivalry game. And we are going to hit 2 on back-to-back days, Thanksgiving weekend. We are going to be in Madison, Wisconsin on Black Friday for an 11 o'clock local start for Paul Bunyan's Axe, baby. Wisconsin, Minnesota. It's going to be awesome. Going to be in Camp Randall. Your boys going to be hitting the jump around in fourth quarter. It's going to be excellent. Cannot wait. I have been to Madison one time. It was a long time ago. And my boy has not been. So I am fired up to roll around Madison, experience that environment, experience that stadium, and experience that particular game with you on Black Friday. And then we're going to hop in the old rental car and take a 6-hour trek down to Bloomington, Indiana for the old Oaken Bucket on Saturday, Indiana and Purdue. Brother, I mean, I have not been this fired up for a trip maybe since, I don't know, man. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
I
Yeah.
am really, really jacked up for this trip.
2
So
rivalry games. Yeah.
2 monster rivalry games, 2 trophy games.
2 trophy
You know how
games.
much your boys love a trophy game. So
Yeah.
if you listen to the show and you are a Wisconsin fan, or you listen to the show and you're an Indiana fan, or if you're neither of those, but you've spent time hanging out in Bloomington or spent time hanging out in Madison for a football weekend, please send us all of the recommendations. We want to make sure we hit as many spots as possible. I do know a few spots we are absolutely going to go to in Madison just from my last time there. But and I've kind of done some research on Bloomington, but be on the lookout that weekend because we're going to post a bunch of content. Our intention is to do 2 live shows from outside each stadium game day mornings. And I don't know, my boy over here might have to wear pants, which I feel like happens like 3 times a year.
Not very often, but as cold as it's going to be, I'm probably going to have to.
Yeah, it's going to be hot. It is going to be spicy.
I'm going to have to dust off the jeans.
And we have a little lake effect wind in Madison. But God, man, I am like, the level of jacked up that I am is really, really unexplainable. But yeah, I'm fired up. Where are you sitting on it? How on a scale of 1 to 100? Where are you at on this?
Like 1,000. Man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I mean, just the fact that we were able to coordinate this, and that, let's be realistic, we both have children, and that our wives are okay with us leaving on Thanksgiving because we both have to fly out Thanksgiving Day. So let's be realistic. That's the real win here, is that we are both getting to leave the house on Thanksgiving Day.
Here's the cool part about this too. The way the logistics worked out, which I can't believe this happened, is we will actually get to be on the same flight from Atlanta to Madison.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know how that happened. That just lucked out. So yeah.
So yeah, we will get into Madison Thanksgiving night. We will be in Madison Thanksgiving night. Maybe we should each bring a to-go box of Thanksgiving food and have a little Thanksgiving supper together. I wonder if any of the bars in Madison will be open on Thanksgiving Eve there on State Street. We'll do some ground research. We're fixing to stay at the Graduate Hotel in downtown Madison, so it's going to be a time, man. I am just jacked up. Oh, I need to tell you this. There is a bar in Madison, if I'm remembering this right, I think it's called the College Club, but College Club is spelled with K's, and so like it's called like the KK. Well, dude, one of the College Club's things is they have drinking mittens there. So it's a fingerless drinking mitten with the College Club logo on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, it's fantastic. So Jenna has one. My wife has one from many, many years ago because she has 2 friends who went there, road crew there, and they took her out on State Street and they went to the KK, and she got a drinking glove. I'm hoping that she still has it. I hope it's not something that got lost in one of our moves, because if she still has it, you best believe I'm going to be wearing it probably the entire trip. If not, we are purchasing them at the KK for ourselves. But yeah, so it's going to be awesome, man. And there's a place called Wando's, which has fish bowls, and there is some lore that is possibly where the jump around tradition emanated from, was a night of imbibing with some Wisconsin football players and some, I think, staff members for like the Wisconsin football game day at Wando's. So I'm interested to learn a little bit more about that. So yeah, man, it's gonna be awesome. And then Bloomington, by all accounts, like all the research I've done, is supposed to be an electric college town. So I cannot wait for that trip. The countdown is on. I'm peeling the days off the calendar as we go to get to Black Friday. So yeah, it's gonna be great. So follow along for that. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and like I said, shoot us any recommendations that you have. While we're on Indiana, let's talk about that game. Indiana's hosting Michigan, and obviously the countdown then into they got to play Ohio State here, which is, I think, going to be their opportunity to stake their claim to, hey, we're real and we're here. But I mean, dude, every week I watch them and I just go, I'm no less convinced that they're awesome and no less convinced that they are absolutely relevant in the playoff picture this year. Like, where you sit on them?
They're fun. They're an electric offense. They've got a stifling defense. I mean, look, I followed Signetti for the last few years because he coached my alma mater, the JMU Dukes. And that is how JMU played. That watching them is like watching a more talented JMU team because he's got better resources there. That is
Yep.
exactly what I'm watching. They run fast-paced offense. They're fun to watch. They are go, 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 go all the time. And the defense is just, they're stifling. And they run a very unique defense that's not it's not a common one that you see very often. And I mean, they get after it. They're fast. They get to the ball, and they are there. I mean, the Big Ten isn't quite used to these high flying offenses like this. This is like when Urban Meyer brought his offense in Ohio State, and they kind of took it by storm. This is the same kind of thing. So it's a different style of offense. So I think they're legit. It'll be interesting to see when they play Ohio State. Michigan's got a good defense. We'll see how Michigan, can how they stand with it. Plus, Indiana's offense, the way they go so fast, the defenses can't sub. That's the best thing about the offense. They cannot sub because they go so fast. They don't allow you to because they get right up to the line, and they may not run a play right away, but they get right up to the line, and they don't allow you to sub. So the defenses get tired while they're on the field.
I am so big on football teams having an identity and knowing who they are. And I have not seen a team in college football this year that has more of an identity and is more comfortable in who they are and what they want to do than Indiana. You can just tell. They come out and it's like, yeah, we're about to punch you in the mouth on defense, and we're going to do whatever we want on offense. Come stop it. Like, they just, I don't know, man. They just have a good feel about them. And I guess the one thing you could make an argument with them is that they really haven't been punched in the mouth yet. So we don't exactly know how they'll respond to that. But I also think there's something to be said for, I think Max Olson posted something this week, like they're beating opponents by like a margin of like 296 points or something like that, which is insane, man. Like, they're not just beating people, they are punishing people. And I will point out that the same Nebraska team that gave Ohio State all they wanted in Columbus got the doors blown off by Indiana. So, like, if we're talking about who's played somebody, man, like, I just feel like we have this conversation every year. When are we going to stop propping Penn State up as, like, this incredible win and some kind of signature victory? Like, it's the same narrative every year. Ohio State's undefeated, and their only win is against Penn State. And everybody goes, oh, Ohio State's great. They beat Penn State. And it's like, dude, Penn State, whatever, man. Penn State, pair of shoes, man. I just, except for Tyler Warren. Except for former Atlee High School quarterback Tyler Warren.
If Penn State if Indiana, or if Penn State had Indiana's resume, they'd be number one in the country.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you. Yeah, I'm right on board with that. Well, another big game on Saturday night. Obviously, Bama LSU. Bama traveling to Death Valley. Going to be a night game in Death Valley. Essentially a knockout game for each of those teams. Loser goes home. No playoffs for either one of the whoever the loser ends up being. I have less than zero feel for this game. I think you could make an argument that both quarterbacks at times have looked like the best quarterback in the country, and then both quarterbacks have at times been the Achilles heel for their team. And I think obviously both teams are going to go as their quarterback goes. But who are you flying with on Saturday night? You flying with Garrett Nussmeier, or are you flying with Jalen Milroe?
I cannot believe I'm saying this. I'm going with LSU because I trust the coach in the environment because he's at home. If this was at Alabama, I would take Bama. And the reason that this is shocking is because anyone who's ever listened to the show knows that I cannot stand Brian Kelly. I think he's the biggest fraud in college football.
True.
Besides James Franklin. They're
Yeah.
1A and 1B.
Your two favorite coaches in the country.
But it's just it's at home, it's at night. The Cajuns are going to be all liquored up, and Kalen DeBoer has never experienced this.
Yeah.
And this is this Bama team, the way they are currently constructed, I don't see them being able to handle this environment. They're not disciplined enough to handle this environment. It's not that they're not talented enough. They're not disciplined enough to handle this environment. And that's why I think LSU will win.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, man. I think Jalen Norvell's going to have a good game. I think it's going to be a really, really fun ball game to watch. But I do think at some point that road environment for Alabama is going to come into play, and that home environment for LSU, there's going to be some type of play that is attributable to Death Valley on a Saturday night. And there's no environment in college football like it. And so I think it's probably worth at least 3 points and maybe even a touchdown all by itself. So we're going to see. I think it's going to be which quarterback has less mistakes, who protects the football, who keeps their team, on the right side of the turnover margin throughout that ball game. I think you could make an argument for both of them that when they're protecting the football, Garrett Nussmeier's been outstanding, and so is Jalen Milroe. I will say, I think the X factor in this is Jalen Milroe just has a whole different dynamic to him that not many quarterbacks across America have, where he's just liable to hurt you with his legs, with his arm. When he's at his zenith, he's as good as they get. I mean, he's tough, man. And so I think they have an opportunity there. I think the problem with them, they have not looked good on the road. I mean, they lost to Vandy, they lost to Tennessee. And so how are they going to look when they go to Baton Rouge? That's the one thing that gives me concern. I do think they are figuring it out a little bit on defense, which has been a bugaboo all year. I mean, if they can play clean on defense, they're going to be a problem. And it's still Alabama, man. And I just feel like the expectation with that program is to win, but it's Alabama LSU. I feel like those games are always awesome, and something crazy always happens. And yeah, man, it's. I feel like even wilder given the fact that whoever loses they're out. This season's not over, but like both of those programs expect to be in the playoffs, and I think it's a disappointment if they're not in the playoffs. And look, man, I think in so many ways, Kalen DeBoer's kind of playing with house money, right? It's year one. I know people are going to be disappointed and up in arms if they lose, but like he's not going anywhere, man. They're building right now. Whereas with Brian Kelly, they lose, man, and it's 3 years in a row, his first 3 seasons where they got 3 losses. And I think the seat starts to get a little warm if you're an LSU fan, because their expectation is not to have 3 losses every year. That's not what you go to Baton Rouge for. And so, I don't know, man, you and me have talked about it. That has always been such a bizarre culture fit to me, him at LSU. And so, I don't know, man. And there's no reason why you should not be excellent at LSU. The talent there is so, so good, and your recruiting reach, given where you can go, like recruiting East Texas, recruiting Louisiana, like you should not lose 3 games at LSU. You just shouldn't. And so something's in the water there. Also, that USC loss looks worse and worse as the season goes on. I don't know, man. I have no feel for this one. This is one of those where, as we say often, I would not put real money anywhere near this ball game. Like, no feel
not at all.
Well,
I will be
another one at you.
Just watching it.
Holy War on Saturday night, BYU, Utah. Utah has obviously not been great, and BYU has been excellent, but playing the Utes at home is never an easy endeavor. And given that it is a rivalry game of this magnitude, I think that is a very compelling game Saturday night.
It is compelling, and I think it's going to. I think Whittingham might be fighting for coaching for his job, which is ridiculous. You know, a couple months ago would have been ridiculous to think, but I really think that it's getting to that point, and I don't think it's one of those things where it's like they're saying that he can't coach anymore, but I think that they're thinking that maybe he can't coach in this era, the NIL era, that he can't keep up. And I mean, look, their defense is still their defense, but their offense without they don't have a quarterback. They just don't. Without Cam Rising, and banking on him to come back healthy this year was dumb. It just was. And they should have tried to get someone out of the portal, and they didn't. And they were banking on him to come back, and he got hurt again. So, I mean, they're stuck with what they're stuck with. And their offense is just, it's putrid. And they're trying to win games like 17-10. And you can't do that. You're just not going to be successful like that. And I would not be, this game is going to be either a rock fight where it's like a 17-10 game, or BYU is going to go in there and absolutely dominate. Because there's no way that Utah can score much in this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's exactly what I would say. Either Utah's defense plays out of its mind, and Utah runs the football well enough to shorten the ball game, or they don't, and BYU puts up 40 points. I mean, I think those are the only two possible outcomes. And in some ways, man, God, if you're Utah, this is not the week that you want to play BYU. Because if I'm BYU, all I am talking about and thinking about all week is that nobody respects us. Nobody thinks we're any good.
Yeah.
And so now the mission is we're just going to go beat the pants off everybody that gets in our way. Like, the mission is just blow the doors off of every opponent the rest of the way, because we want to leave no doubt. Like, that would just be my mantra if I was BYU. We would just have every kid on the team would have a leave no doubt shirt. That's all we'd be doing. We are coming in here to annihilate whoever is in front of us. Leave no doubt that we should be in this thing, and like somebody needs to put some respect on this logo and our name. I mean, that's where I'd be with it. And so, dude, you look at their schedule. There's not a loss on their schedule that I see, and who they end up playing in the Big 12 title game, which is very interesting, by the way. And I am very much rooting for a world where chaos happens and Colorado backs their way in the Big 12 title game. Just because
that would be fun.
Oh, it'd be super fun. I think the storylines there are incredible. But yeah, I mean, how great do you feel if you're Colorado sitting on the couch this weekend and everybody that you needed to lose loses? It's like everything's just falling like it needed to fall. And so, let me ask you this, because we're getting closer and closer now. We're like a month out from the Heisman. Maybe I shouldn't be this exacerbated about it, but how are we even having a conversation about who the Heisman should be? Like, if he stays healthy, how is it not Travis Hunter? I don't get it.
I think that there's such a stigma around that program because they were so not, like, they were the darlings of college football for the first 3 weeks last year. And then they became so not likable and crybabies. Not Hunter, but Dion and Shador. And he just kind of gets lumped in with them. So I feel like that there's this stigma around the program.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, it's basically, it's either him or Junty, and there's no other, that's it. But people are like, oh, well, votes will be split between, Shador will take votes away from him. I don't think Shador will take votes away from Hunter. I don't see how that's possible.
Like, for me, if the season ended today, the 4 that I would have, they do 4 now. Is that what they do? That go to New York?
Yeah.
The 4 I would have in New York are Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Ashton Junti, and then I'm open to arguments on whether the 4th one is Dylan Gabriel or Shadur Sanders. I think Shadur, if you look at what he's done on the field statistically and they're winning, dude, Shadur's having an outstanding year and like explosive. And so I think the counter argument is, well, Dylan Gabriel's quarterback on the number 1 team in the country, and the numbers are comparable enough where I would be just fine with Dylan Gabriel being there. I also think you could make an argument that Curtis Rourke could be there from Indiana, given what Indiana's done and given how well he's played. I think you could throw his name in the hat. Yeah, man, I don't think you can take Bryson Daly out of that conversation, right? Like, there's a lot of names you can put in the hat, but I think the 3 locks right now is Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Ashton Junti. Like, those are the 3 that are in the conversation for me. And like, I guess the thing for me with Travis Hunter is he's not just playing both ways. He's not just playing 100+ snaps a game. He's doing so at an elite level at both positions. And so, like,
yeah,
I feel like this was the whole thing with Charles Woodson. Like, oh my God, he was a 2-way player. And it's like, dude, Charles Woodson was like a add-on piece on offense. Like, he had, he was a gadget guy. Whereas Travis Hunter is the offense. Like,
he's the number 1 wide receiver.
Yes. And dude, it's just, it's like, what are we even talking about here? Like, and they're 6-2. Like, I think if they were 2-6, he's still the Heisman. But they're 6-2. Like, his team is playing well. So what are we even talking about? He is the best football player in America. So he should be the Heisman Trophy winner. Like, it seems like the biggest no-brainer ever, and it's not, which is silly to me. But anyways, just one man's opinion. To me, he is the Shohei Ohtani of college football. I've been saying that since week 2 last year. And so, like, yeah, if he's healthy, he's it. He should be the guy, period. Hard stop. There is no other argument for me. But, yeah, it is what it is. Narrative is so much of it. So I feel like that's the big thing. But, yeah.
We don't get a vote.
We don't get a vote. We'd love to have a vote. If the Heisman Memorial Trophy would like to include the Saturday Anthems podcast in the voting population, I'm all for it. All for it. Yeah. Well, that's all I got, homie. That's all I got this week. I am just, another week of this awesome college football season coming up. I have loved the 2024 college football season as much as any in recent memory. So I just can't wait, man. It's going to be another awesome weekend to see what's going to happen.
I know, we were really worried that this was going to be a downer of a year.
Nope.
And it has not disappointed.
Oh, it's been so awesome. Yeah, it's each week is a new adventure. So I can't wait. Well, we will see what happens, and we will talk with y'all all about it next week. And until then, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.